Hi Praneet, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. So maybe let's introduce ourselves. Hi everyone, my name is José. I'm one of the senior engineers at epilot. I work mainly on front-end issues and topics and mostly TypeScript and React.
I'm Praneet. I'm a senior developer at epilot as well. And like Jose, I also work mostly on front-end stuff, React and TypeScript. Both me and Jose are part of a squad called UI Task Force, which basically focuses on keeping up the quality and everything is in order on the front-end side.
Today, we'd like to discuss some of the brand new topics on the web that have been interesting us in the last few months. So the first topic that I would like to bring to you is signals in JavaScript. I don't know if you've heard about signals or not. If signals are new to you, the idea is the following. So you're probably aware that in the client side, we've been struggling to keep state in sync in pretty much every framework that we've been building on for the past 20 years. And the idea here is every framework has a different way to keep state in sync and keep everything reactive. So the topic of signals was recently introduced. There's a stage 0 proposal on the TC39 GitHub that you can go and read. We'll link to it in the description in the podcast. And it goes over exactly what signals do for us. So with signals, essentially we can instantiate state and we can instantiate computed values. And then when rendering, everything is magically going to be kept up to sync without us having to do a lot of effort to get there. So signals are not necessarily going to be something that us as developers are going to be focusing on at all times. The frameworks themselves should adapt and should grab this concept of signals and use it for reactivity. So the fact that it's going to be built into the web platform itself means that reactivity is going to be more performant, it's going to be more standardized, and more accessible in general. And we're going to stop having to make up ways to keep things reactive.
That sounds really interesting, Jose. Like this topic has been, in the back of my mind for a long time. A lot of frameworks and libraries have tried to solve this problem. For example, Mobux tries to do it its own way. It has observables and actions and stuff, which is basically trying to achieve reactivity.
It's, I think it's a great step in standardizing things that we need on the web, right? Because, so remember promises back in 2015, they were standardized into ECMAScript 2015. But prior to that, we were seeing the need for this. We had a lot of promises, polyfills and ponyfills and solutions to kind of get around this topic, and having them built into the platform provided a lot of value. So nowadays we do nothing without promises and async await, and just the fact that it's built into the platform provides that much value. Yeah. However, signals is still a stage 0 proposal, as was mentioned, so it's still not implemented in the web platform. It still has to go through the whole standardizing process until it reaches stage 4 and it's finally implemented in web browsers. So if you want to experiment with signals right now, actually in the TC39 GitHub proposal, you can find a polyfill for signals, which you can use today. I think actually reading the source code for the polyfill is a very interesting way of understanding how they actually work behind the scenes. And it's something that you can get started with today, even before the proposal reaches stage 4 and it's implemented in web browsers. Frameworks might just start adopting it using the polyfill. And so for me, it looks clear. It's clear that this is the way forward. And so we might as well get started with it right now.
That's really interesting. And I'm really excited to try it out. I believe you've already tried out the polyfill and played around with it. how does the syntax or the API design look like? Is it like still in very early stages?
No, so actually, I think it's very close to finished. It seems very stable. Right now, you have three important pieces. You have state, you have computed, and you have effects. So with state, you simply initialize a piece of state. With computed, you use this piece of state to derive a different value. So if you're thinking in React terms, this would be a value that you memoize using useMemo. And then we have effects, which get triggered when either the state or the computed value changes. For me, the really interesting part here is that all of this is lazily evaluated. So the state is only accessed when you call the get method on it, and the computed values are only recomputed from the state if the state has changed when the get method is called on it. And so the fact that all of this is lazily evaluated means that we can have a lot of performance benefits here. These are a lot of the things that React has been trying to do with hooks, with useState, useMemo, and useEffect, but having it built into the web platform is going to allow us to abstract away all of that. So in the future, maybe we're just going to be working with signals and skip those altogether.
That sounds really exciting, and I'm really excited for this future where the platform helps us move forward with these problems that we have been struggling with for a long time.
So I hear you also have news about React 19, right?
Exactly. Yeah, you're right, Jose. So the React team announced what they've been up to lately, what we as developers can expect from them in 2024. And you can find the blog on React's official blog. We'll link it in the description. But what it basically summarizes is what we'll be getting in React 19. And there are a few really nice goodies there, but the thing that most excites me is the React compiler. So that basically tries to solve the major gripe I have with React right now, which is the use memo and use callback API. They are not very pleasant to work with, especially in very large projects. It feels like a task to just trying to work with React to get these things right, to manage all the dependencies, and I'm sure we have faced a lot of performance regressions because of this as well. So what React compiler basically tries to do is automate all of this. React compiler tries to pre-compute and track the dependencies required for callbacks and computed values. So we might not need use callback and use memos at all in the future. And the good thing about this is it is already in production on Instagram.com. So the way React team is approaching this is they are trying to bring this into the Instagram code base, which is a huge code base. So that way they'll hit every edge case and problem that they could face, and they are basically trying to solve it piece by piece. So on a majority part of the Instagram.com, the web Instagram code today live in production already uses React compiler, which is a good thing. Yeah, that's really exciting to me, and more so because in the past I've been working more with Moworks state tree, which tries to do this to some extent. In Moworks, you don't have to think about dependencies for computed values or callbacks. So coming from that place, I really missed that thing being natively in React. So that's why I'm really excited for this one. And another great thing that I'm sure you as a UI developer will appreciate in React 19 would be no more forward ref. How
Wow.
cool is that?
That would be perfect.
Yeah, so that will be standardized as a ref prop. You won't have to wrap components with forward ref to actually pass on the ref. Just like we have the children prop, there will be a standard ref prop that you can directly use.
It's insane that it hasn't been like that since the beginning.
Exactly, right? So
that would have been wonderful.
yeah, that's so amazing, right?
In terms of actually the React compiler, so it offers us performance benefits out of the box without us having to rely on use memo or use callback and memoizing components.
Yeah, exactly. That's how it's going to work, and I believe like it's going to make our lives so much easier, right? We can focus on the business logic. We can focus on actually shipping features instead of trying to work with our tools to solve these things. So it's a really great step forward.
So I'm looking forward to a future when we can do a Command F, use memo, use callback, memo, and just take it all off and have all of the performance benefits of
exactly. Yeah, so exciting, right? And another change that's coming to React 19 is changes to the context API. So it's a, I would say, a syntactic sugar kind of thing to some extent. What we don't have to do anymore, we won't have to do anymore, is wrap by context.provider. So the context itself can be used in JSX. So you just wrap it with use the context directly as a JSX tag, and use context hook will be gone. React had announced the use hook some time back. So the use hook can be used with context. So you could just pass the context as the first argument to the use hook, and that's how the syntax is going to work. Basically, the use context, the new use hook, can be used can be used conditionally and inside loops. Wow. So the major problem that we have, we have to make sure that all the use context, calls are on the top, so we don't accidentally render them conditionally or inside loops. That thing is gone now. You can, in fact, use the context hook anywhere. Like you can use it in conditional branches, and so that's pretty cool as well.
So they're making the use hook very versatile, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Eventually, we're going to be relying on the use hook and maybe use state in some circumstances. And if everything goes well, like we'll get rid of use memo and use callback. And if we do things well, we get rid of use effect for sure. That seems very exciting.
Yeah, I'm really excited for that as well. And have you had a chance to look at React Server components?
I just very lightly, yes.
Yeah, so what they are bringing now is an action pattern, which basically standardizes sending data to the servers. So server actions were announced way back in last year, but now they are also standardizing the actions pattern to work on client as well. So we could, in fact, pass actions to directly to form elements, and that basically standardizes how you interact and pass data, manage the whole data flow in the form elements, and pass it to the server.
So you're saying I can have a function declared outside of the scope of the component. I can pass a reference to this function to the action attribute in the form element.
Exactly.
And magically, when the form gets submitted, the function gets called on the server.
Exactly.
This is...
no more prop delete.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is going to change a lot of stuff.
Exactly. And this also, there's also a use optimistic hook which comes with that. And this basically solves the problem of the optimistic state updates. We've been trying to do it like hacky ways using React query until now, and I'm not really a fan of how we do it right now, how we handle optimistic updates, because it's very error prone and not very pleasant to work with. But the use optimistic hook is going to solve all of that, and it's just going to just work seamlessly.
And this provides real value to the end customer, right? Because right now, oftentimes, we don't do optimistic updates very often to just run away from this problem, to avoid having to deal with it.
Yeah.
But now, if you're just using the use optimistic hook with every server action that you use, essentially you're going to have the optimistic updates behavior built in out of the box without having to have a lot of additional concerns.
Yes, exactly, right. I have always been a fan of optimistic updates because it makes the UI feel so much
More responsive.
more
Absolutely.
responsive and
Just clicking like on a post and seeing the like straight away
Yeah.
without having to wait for the action to
exactly.
reach the server
And
get
even
back a
more
response.
so with drag and drop or sorting UIs, because when you sort something, let's say in a drag and drop fashion, and if there are no optimistic updates, you'll see it jumping back and forth, which doesn't look really good. But tracking these optimistic updates, handling all the failing cases, it was not very pleasant to do until now. So I hope so use optimistic solves all of that for us.
This is awesome.
Yeah. And also, another small thing that's coming is native support for the title and meta tags anywhere in the component tree. So we used to use libraries like React Helmet, or if you're using Next.js, the head element to do this. Now it's coming natively to React. So you can use the title or meta tags anywhere in the component tree, and they'll get attached to the head element.
So this is not a Next.js specific thing. It's built into
it's coming
React.
to React now.
This is great.
It's awesome. Right?
It was cool to have it in Next,
Yeah.
but those of us not using Next.js couldn't take the benefits from this, and so it's great to have it built into React. Actually,
Yeah.
I'm in that sense. I'm glad that Vercel is bringing these to the React platform itself, and not just keeping it in Next.
Yes. I heard you've been trying out a ORM called Drizzle.
That's exactly right. So I've been experimenting a bit with Drizzle. It's spelled Drizzle with 2 Z's. And this is essentially a TypeScript ORM that you can use with any relational or SQL database. They have built-in adapters for MySQL, PostgreSQL, and NoSQL, if I'm not wrong. This brings us a lot of the benefits of TypeScript when interacting with SQL and relational databases. So you might already be aware, have you heard of Prisma before?
Yes, I worked with Prisma.
So Prisma was introduced a few years ago, I believe, a couple of years ago. And they offered exactly this value proposition. That is, you would be able to declare your schemas in .prisma files. Then you would run a type gen step, code generation step, which would automatically generate TypeScript types for you. And with these types, you could have type inference, you could have automatic type completion in VS Code. And so you would bring essentially the value of TypeScript to your ORM. But the issue is we had this type generation step. Plus, Prisma is not great at batching requests and essentially batching queries. And Drizzle tries to solve exactly these two problems. So with Drizzle, you don't have a type generation step. Out of the box, you get built-in type inference and type checking. And you're declaring everything within TypeScript files. So there are no .drizzle files, as we have with Prisma. And they have a lot of smart batching mechanisms that allow you to keep the amount of requests that you make to the server minimal. So they really minimize all of the effort that you're doing with your ORM to avoid excess requests. But also, they've put a very strong focus on serverless. And this is where it shines for me. So I would recommend that everyone tries this out. You should go to the Drizzle documentation, which we will link to in the description, and experiment with Drizzle either on Next.js running on serverless. You might also want to try it out in combination with React Server Components. That's probably a good combination. And you will see that it just works seamlessly on serverless, and that it's just crazy fast and great to work with. If I have any struggle with it, it's that for each built-in adapter, you have to do things slightly differently. So they haven't yet been able to unify all of the logic between the MySQL, the Postgres, and the NoSQL adapters. So each of these have some slight tweaks that need to be done. but hopefully in the future they might be able to get this done.
Yeah, Prisma was really good at this, right? Unifying, basically hiding all the underlying database level, caveats and unifying the interface for all the adapters. So hope so this comes to Drizzle as well. What I'm curious about is how do they do migrations? Like,
that's a great question. Actually, that's something I wasn't thinking about. But so they give you two easy ways of doing migrations. You have a Drizzle kit npm package, which has a push command, which magically does migrations for you. If the migrations are seamless and they don't change any column names, they're just adding stuff and they're not going to break your database, the push command is going to work. But for anything that is more fine-tuned, they recommend that you actually generate migration files through Drizzle. So the Drizzle CLI tool itself allows you to generate these migration files. And then you can run the migration files on your own. They essentially write all of the migration logic for you, so you don't have to be too concerned with that. And my experience so far has been great. So I've used it mostly with PostgreSQL, and it's just seamless. I haven't had any pains personally with it.
that sounds really exciting. I'm excited to try it out. I've always been a fan of Prisma, and Drizzle sounds really good with all these performance optimizations and batching of updates.
So you have another topic that you'd like to cover, right?
Exactly. How can we not have a state management library in a web dev discussion, right? So, just like every other week in web dev, there's another state management library in town, this time coming from the makers of Xstate. So, have you had a chance to try out Xstate?
I haven't actually. I've just read the documentation. It seems very interesting. People who are fans of Xstate are very fervorous fans, right?
Yeah.
And so I really want to understand what the hype is all about.
Exactly. So I've also not had a chance to use Xstate in a production environment so far, not in a big project, but I've tried it out. Just read the documentation, tried out a few examples, and I really like the philosophy of Xstate. The whole state machines idea just clicks with me, like. So that's why I really like it, and yeah, I have this deep desire to create a complex state machine for a large project, maybe something like something epilot. So what basically we have now is a state management library coming from the Xstate team. So when I started reading about it, I had my doubts, like why do we even need this in the first place? So Xstate, it's called Xstate Store, by the way. We'll link you the announcement in the description. And yeah, what it basically is it's a really tiny state management library, just like Zustand. What it does differently is it follows the Xstate's philosophy. Basically, it's a event-driven design, the same way Xstate is. So in Xstate, you have the action pattern, and there are states which can be transitioned using events. So Xstate Store has a similar API design, a similar philosophy. It might look very similar to Zustand, but as I read more about it, as I dived deeper into it, it sort of clicked in my mind. Why does it even exist in first place? So firstly, it can be used with or without Xstate. It doesn't have to necessarily be used with Xstate. But where it shines is that it's plug and play with Xstate. So what you can do is define a store, an Xstate store, maybe somewhere in your application. Maybe it's a local state somewhere for some component, right? And it doesn't really need to be a complex state machine. So you define it with Xstate store, and it would basically work just like Zustand. You'll have like your actions and all the state and context. And when you want to actually plug it with your state machine or convert it into a state machine, scale it further, it's just a single line of code. So with a single line of code, you can just either transform it in a state machine or initialize a state actor from the store itself. So that's where it shines.
All right, so I believe that's all the time that we have for today.
Yeah.
I look forward to discussing new topics with you in the future again. Look forward to having more productive discussions in the future.
Yeah, same here.